Alright, so I have my 3 servos set up. So I've got them set up and I'm going to put them on neutral. And so these are just very inexpensive small little servos. Simply because I don't have any Blue Arrow servos on hand. And those are my weapon of choice on these airplanes. So we're just going to take the single arm servo horns out for all of these. And so you've got one of these, well, you want to pair up 2 of these so that they are like so. Opposing, and those will serve as your aileron servos. They're going to be side by side. We're going to pin those kind of in place and glue them in. And then this third servo will put kind of sideways, and it'll be your elevator servo. And so it can go kind of either way, although I would suggest trying to do it like that, because it's going to go like so. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our wire dikes, we're going to snip the edges, or the tabs off of these servos, because those are just going to get in our way. Okay, so now that we've got our servo stack kind of ready to go here, what you're going to want to do, and I have actually sanded off the burrs on all of these where the tabs were. So what you're going to want to do is you want to carefully start actually gluing these servos to each other. And now you're saying, what in the world? Yes, there is method to this. There are other ways that you can do this, so if you really are put off by, hey, glue your servos together, well, there are other ways to do it. This is just my preferred method. And I'm actually going to have to hit that with a tiny bit of kicker. And there they go. They're bonded together nicely. It doesn't have to be a super strong bond, it's just enough to kind of hold them together before we get really serious about bonding our servos into place against each other. Because now what you're going to do is you're going to take your third servo and you're going to glue it like so. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can make it face the other way if you want. Not really important. Well, I had it. I tried to shift it because I'm OCD about having everything perfectly lined up, even though it's kind of non-critical. There we go. Now take some of your Kevlar thread and we're going to dab a little bit of CA on here. And what we're doing is we're just binding all of these servos together. sure at least a few of you are yelling at your computer screen, what in the world are you doing? But this is a proven method that is commonly used on, at least by some of us on our discus gliders. And it does seem to work rather well. As long as you just keep your glue away from the floor. Actually, if you keep your glue away from the servo output, you're fine. And of course, obviously, don't use thin CA for this unless you want your servos to not function. So basically, we have built ourselves a servo brick. Now we'll plug it back in one more time just to validate that yes, it all works. Yep. And everybody's happy. We're going to center them and power it down. Now it's sticky and gluey. I'm going to curl the wires underneath here. At this point, I actually, much as I didn't want to, I have to unplug it. And so our goal here is to make all these little guys sit, and unfortunately, with the wires around like that, it won't go all the way in. So let's try that once more. There we go. Alright, so this is how our servos are supposed to fit in here. And so you can use your choice on how you want those aileron horns set up. With them sticking out the side, it is really nice and easy to do your servo hookup. So that's kind of your choice on that part. So I'm going to glue this in place, and then I'm going to shim it on the sides with some of that, some scrap wood. We've got lots of 1/8 from our scraps. So what I'm first going to do, slide this guy forward. Now, one-eighth is just the right size for a couple of shims here. There we go. Okay, so we have servos installed here and whatnot, and what we're going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and get the push rods in here. And so I know that look kind of, hang on, let me do that on camera so you can see what kind of finagling was involved. Okay, so I'm going to choose this second hole here, and the reason for that is that one is going to allow me to avoid running things too much into the sides of the fuselage. So the push rod stays more or less internal here. So there we go. And now we can verify in our Tyrannus DLG program everything is looking good. So now we'll pack all of this up inside of here. I have made no effort to balance the airplane or any of that. That gets done at a later time. And of course the other thing is we also have not set up the rudder either. Not the rudder, elevator. We don't have a rudder. And try not to scrape up the bottom of your wing the way I am with pretty much every rotation of this silly thing. There we go. Alright, so finagle our push rods around. So our goal here is to set this up to where that, in this position, our flaps are retracted. So that's that position right there. So that'll work. I notice I don't have it in the push rod, I'm just lining it up on it. Or not the push rod, the control horn. I'm going to snip this. About that much sticking out. Now I'm not sure I can fit this on here without taking the wing back off. Probably can't, which is kind of what you want. But you want that a full 90 degrees. But I am going to at least give it a shot because I'm lazy. Yep. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing. And I'm going to line this one up the same way. And that looks to be lined up correctly as well. So we'll snip it same way. So what that means is I have to take the wing back off. I know that seems annoying. While we're in here though, we're going to go ahead and set up our elevator. To find where I dropped my Kevlar thread, so we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so I found the Kevlar thread, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to look in here. I think try and get away with the highest hole on the elevator. Try and feed that through here. Not quite wanting to go. Kevlar is a lot harder to work through these than spider wire, but spider wire cannot handle hot exhaust from a rocket engine. Alright, so all we're going to do is we're just going to tie a very, very simple plain Jane knot here. Fit this guy on through here. There we go. And so keep doing that until it comes out the other end. Still not there. There we go. Okay, my elevator is not got a whole lot of up travel, so I'm going to go off camera for a second. I'm going to grind away at the top of the tail boom here. So we'll be right back. Okay, I'm back with all the elevator travel I could want. So now, I'll fit the elevator here in, I think the second hole will probably do alright. So what I'm doing is I am attempting to force this through here. I'll be right back. I'm going to go off camera because I need to find a piece of wire that will help me do this. Okay, so I actually put this on the innermost hole. That seems to work the best. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to loosen the screw on here just a little bit. And set that elevator to approximately 0. And that should be good. Now it's in there, so I have full elevator travel on this guy. And that's all set. So now we should be able to go ahead and drop our flaperons into their slots on here. There we go. Now my only problem with that is there we go. Alright. So we can screw it all back together. So we're good. So I'm using the Tyrannus Plus DLG program. And I've got very, very good flap elevator travel, or whatever you want to call it. A little bit of double centering going on. Everything looks good. And I'm tuning the correct directions on it. So, that's run mode. And let's see, we'll add some thermal. Maybe not quite that much. And I'm also going to adjust my trim slightly. Wrong way. And so we'll have to do some of my flap asymmetry after a little bit. See if I can. Oh, I see what it is. Okay. So it's actually a function of needing a little more room in here. Alright, but bottom line is we're flight ready. Checking the CG. We're actually about where we need to be. So I'm going to take the prop off and go out and glide this thing a little bit, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so we've finished building our Firefeather, and one last thing I want to show you is if you're going to fly on the Estes C60 motors, you're going to have to close up or open up a hole in the top of this engine mount tube. So that's the only really remaining thing you want to pay attention to. Once you've done all that where I showed you your flap mixing and whatnot, this is the one last thing that you want to pay attention to. And the reason for that is the Estes engines basically just have a fuel grain inside a tube. There's nothing on the front of it. And the purpose of that is to blast some fuel forward at the point of engine burnout to ignite a secondary motor for a sustainer or an intermediate stage. Now, the problem with that is if you have this motor locked in here, that is going to create a small explosion inside, and it will eject that motor, and it will hit the horizontal tail. And we've got video of me doing that rather embarrassingly with this airplane because I don't have enough experience flying shrouded rocket motor boosters on radio controlled gliders. But so you'll get to enjoy some humor at my expense. That being said, this is the fix for it, and there's a catch to it. You don't want your engine to fit all the way forward and lock against that bulkhead. I stuck a little stick of 1/8 inch balsa in here so that the engine is just held back a little bit so it leaves a little air gap right here. By leaving that air gap, you're allowing those gases to flow freely, and that'll slide the engine back a little bit, but then it hits this hook and it's good to go. End of problem. So that said, there's another route, and this is kind of the way that you really prefer to fly these if you can. It's a little bit more expensive on the front end, and then afterwards it costs the same. That's to get one of these Aerotech reloadable casings. An 18mm casing. You do want to get a a solid plugged closure for the front. And so that prevents gases from escaping, and you can use plugged motors. And this thing just simply slides in place, and there it is. This is about between $30 and $40 most of the time. Then you'll use reloadable engine casings. The instructions are very straightforward, and you're good to go. So with that, congratulations on finishing your Firefeather, and hope to see you at the field. Questions, comments in the comments section below. We'll see you later.